Hello again, and in this video, we're going to do a short explanation of APA formatting for papers. And APA is the designated format that we agreed to use in the MBA program. So we will go over it briefly now. Let me share the screen. And excuse me, I will say that if you're familiar with APA, this recommendation probably isn't for you, but if you're unfamiliar or never used APA previously, you might want to consider buying some software called Perla. And what it does is it completely formats and does your papers pretty much perfectly. We used to require it for MBA students starting out, and we got some feedback, particularly from people that were very familiar with APA, that it was kind of a waste of money for them and that we shouldn't require it. So we no longer require it, but certainly if you're concerned about formatting of papers or you've never used APA, it might be a good option for you. I think at the time of this video that they do have a special going on where you can do your first paper for free to test it out and then make a decision whether you want to purchase it or not. So if you're concerned, maybe you try it for your first paper in the MBA program and either like it and purchase it or say, hey, I can do this on my own and not do it. Earlier I said pretty much perfectly. What I'll do now is go over a few items that Perla probably doesn't do well and that you guys should watch out for. So what Perla does extremely well is if you have some kind of statement in your paper that requires a citation, and what Perla does is perfectly, it will put in the citation correctly. Let's say that it's from Smith 2015. It will do that perfectly. The big issue that Perla doesn't do is it really does this every single time. And what you might want to do is vary your paper some. So if you've got another statement, you might want to say, you know, let's see if I can fix this here. According to Smith, 2015, comma, and then make your statement. Or you might also say that, yes, Smith also, actually, let me, Smith 2015 also wrote or found or posited that X. And this, it just keeps your paper from being kind of stagnant, that you always have the statement and then followed by the author and the date. So what Perla does is this perfectly. What you may want to do is change the, that kind of went through it, change the writing up a little bit just to keep your paper, I guess, fresher or things like that. So I would recommend that, yes, it will do it properly. And the big thing that Perla also does is as soon as you put in this citation, it will put your references and have all your references correct. So you never have to worry about your reference page. The only changes that you might want to do are things like this down at the bottom. One thing that Perla, another thing that Perla does extremely well is even when there's multiple authors, if I can get this all off, it will properly format it for multiple authors. So if you have, for example, you have that same statement. Oops. You know, whatever it is, whatever your paper's on, you have some statement, and then you have a citation, and it's Smith, Jones, and Smith, 2020. Perla does that perfectly. And also, the next time you reference that same article by Smith, Jones, and Smith, Perla will do this correctly as well, but the proper citation is Smith. Oh, 2020. And Perla will do this correctly. The one time Perla, or the times Perla doesn't do this correctly, is if you've got a team paper and person one did it this way and did it correctly the first time that they highlighted this article, they spelled out all the authors, which is correct. However, when the person who's putting the paper together from 3 or 4 teammates, that first time, you might get that same author three, if there's 4 people and everybody referenced that, it's 4 times the first time. And what an editor would need to do is to go through and see when the first time was and leave it. And then every time after that, so 3 other times, they need to take out the last 2 authors. Now, obviously, Perla doesn't know that. It does it correctly as you're typing the paper, but it doesn't when you're cutting and pasting in. So it is one thing that you have to be careful of. Additionally, as I said earlier, you might want to switch up how you write. And one of the weird, sad, confusing things about APA is when it is in at the end of the sentence and between the parentheses, you use an ampersand. That's my ampersand. I don't know. Maybe I can make it better. That probably looks better instead of a weird infinity sign that I've got going on there. But you use an ampersand. If you were to spell it out like Smith, Jones, and Smith, 2020, found that, and then you write your statement. So it's the same statement that would be up here. But the big thing is when you're writing it out, you spell out the word and when it's in the parentheses at the end, you use an ampersand. Additionally, if you were going to do this and it was the second time that you were going to use the article, you would do the all right, just like that. So that's with 3 or more authors, you do it like that. If there's 1 or 2, you always use both, well, 1 or both authors throughout the paper. And again, Perla does this for you. For those that aren't using Perla, that's kind of the number. The other thing that obviously Perla doesn't do because it has nothing to do with APA formatting, but I will say that in many undergrad papers, students have a tendency to use a lot of direct quotes. And I will tell you, certainly here at graduate school, you should keep the usage of direct quotes to an absolute minimum. And what I advise students is that only use a direct quote when the original author's exact words are critical. So, and what that would tell you is that generally your direct quotes should be extremely short, because rarely do you have, I don't know, 3 sentences where those 3 sentences, every word exactly as the author, the original author wrote it, those exact words are critical. You should summarize those and still do a citation on it, but it doesn't have to be a direct quote. So one example I like to use is an old CEO of mine who was later sentenced to 25 years in prison for unethical behavior and fraud. At one point wrote that a code of conduct, a code of ethics was, and this is the direct quote, a colossal waste of time. And so that is an example to me of when you should use a direct quote, because in most or every case, it's probably some cool vocabulary that I probably couldn't come up with. You know, he didn't just say a waste of time, it was a colossal waste of time. So that's a great example of when you would use a direct quote is, hey, the CEO of this company who was found for fraud 2 years prior to being found for fraud said that a code of conduct was a colossal waste of time. So, and when you do a direct quote, and again, Perla does this for you, but when you use a direct quote in APA, you always have to use either a page or paragraph number. So that same statement by Smith, and at the end of that statement, you've got Smith, I forget what year I used, I think 2015 maybe. And then you've got to put a page 37 there. You can also use paragraph numbers, and you can either do para 727, or you can use that paragraph logo. That's probably a little bit hard. It's easier to write, but you got to actually put it in Word. 727. So with this, and of course, when you're reading something, you don't know whether you're going to have a direct quote in it. So with that, if you're ever looking up something in the library or online somewhere, and there is a choice between a PDF and any other format, always choose the PDF, because the PDF will be an actual picture of, so if it's from Harvard Business Review, you actually have a choice of downloading that in like a website or choosing the PDF. And I guess what I'm telling you is, given the choice, always choose a PDF. And I say that because you don't know, again, whether you're going to need a direct quote from that. And if you do, the PDF is an exact copy of the magazine, the newspaper, the article, whatever. And so therefore, if you have this and it's a direct quote, then you know, because you've got an actual picture of the page, that, hey, that was page 37. If you do an HTML document, yes, it's going to come down much easier, and yes, you may be able to cut and paste it easier, but what will happen is that you will have to start counting paragraphs. So, and you know, if you've got an article that is 20 pages long, you might have 75 paragraphs that you've got to count through until you get to where yours is, so that you can put in the correct paragraph number. So again, it is much easier to do that from a PDF than it is from a web document, HTML document. I know many of the library, if you go to, whether it's our library or somebody else's library, many of the documents you can either download as a PDF or view them as a PDF or an HTML document. So my advice to everybody is always pick PDF. Now, again, 99% of the time, it shouldn't matter because 99% of the time you won't need a direct quote, and therefore you don't need to put in either the page number or paragraph number. So if this isn't a direct quote, all you need to do is do Smith 2015, and that's it. So I would say, I mean, don't shy away if it doesn't come in PDF, because most of the time you won't need the PDF, but it's nice that if you do need it, it's there. So this was a really quick review of APA and some of the, I really wanted to go over some of the issues with if you did download Perla that you might want to look at and change, particularly so your paper just doesn't read statement, citation, statement, citation, statement, citation, statement, citation. So it mixes it up a little bit. I hope this helped a little. Certainly, if you're unfamiliar, again, Perla is a good case, but there's also others that are free and will give you guidance. Purdue OWL, so just do a Google search of Purdue OWL is a great resource for everybody. We also at Limestone have a writing center. Now the downside to that is that you're going to have to finish your paper, 5 days early so you can turn it into the writing center and get some feedback on it before you turn it in. But that's another option available to everybody in the MBA program. So I hope that this helps some, and look forward to seeing you in class or throughout the MBA program. Good luck, everybody.